That night, when he raised his glass and toasted to another woman on my own birthday, I knew his love had never been mine. And there, surrounded by smiling strangers, bright lights glowing and music playing, something inside me didn't break. It was set free. I always thought my marriage was like the cold mornings in Seoul during winter. Simple, predictable, comforting. We would wake up early, the smell of hot hodok would fill the kitchen, and he would smile as if he held the entire world in his chest. My name is Yoon Seo. I'm 32 years old, and that year I truly believed everything was finally falling into place. We lived in Mapo-gu, in a small apartment overlooking the Han River, and sometimes I would stand on the balcony watching the boats pass by slowly, imagining that life would continue that way forever, slow, steady, reliable. But I should have noticed the signs, the distant look when I spoke, the silence that cut deeper than the freezing wind crossing Banpo Bridge, the way he would check his phone and turn the screen face down every time I came near. Before I continue, I need to ask you something. If you've ever felt someone you love slipping away even while staying by your side, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I want more people to know they're not alone in this silent pain that no one sees, but that slowly corrodes the soul. Because the worst kind of loneliness isn't being alone. It's being next to someone and feeling invisible. And I felt that every single day, but I pretended I didn't. I pretended that marriage was still real, that those silences were just work fatigue, that the distance was just a phase. But deep down, in that place where we don't like to look, I already knew. I just didn't have the courage to face the truth. Let me take you back a bit so you understand how I got to that moment. I met Junho when I was 26 years old. I worked at an events agency in Gangnam, was passionate about what I did, spent my days creating unforgettable experiences for other people. He showed up at a conference I was organizing. He was a salesman for a tech company, had that confident manner of someone who knows exactly what he wants. He invited me for coffee after the event, and I accepted. He was charming, funny, attentive. He made me feel special. He said I was different from other women, that there was something unique about me. We dated for 2 years. In the beginning, it was magical. He would take me to beautiful restaurants, introduce me to his friends with pride, send sweet messages during the day. I felt like the luckiest woman in the world. When he proposed to me on a winter night at Seoul Tower, with the entire city glittering beneath us, I had no doubts. I said yes with tears in my eyes, truly believing it was forever. But things changed after the wedding. It was subtle at first, so subtle I barely noticed. He started making small comments about my work. You work so much. You barely have time to take care of the house. Is it really worth all that stress for a salary that isn't even that good? My mother always took care of the house, and my father was so grateful for it. At first I laughed, thought he was joking, but the comments became more frequent, more serious, and I, wanting to be a good wife, wanting him to be happy, started to consider it. 6 months after the wedding, I quit my job. He was thrilled. He said now we would have a real home, that I could dedicate myself to taking care of both of us. And I tried. I would wake up early to make elaborate breakfasts, clean every corner of the apartment, wait for him to come home from work with dinner ready and a smile on my face. But something was wrong. I felt empty, as if an essential part of me had been ripped away. And the worst part was that even doing all of this, he didn't seem any happier. In fact, he seemed more distant. He would come home late, eat in silence, go straight to the computer or his phone. When I tried to talk, he would give short, distracted answers. It was fine. I'm tired. We'll talk later. But later never came. And then, I started noticing the details. The phone always with the screen facing down. The messages he would quickly delete when I approached. The work commitments that extended late into the night. Always on Thursdays and Fridays. The times he would come home with the scent of perfume that wasn't his. A sweet, feminine perfume that clung to his clothes and invaded my nostrils like a warning I refused to hear. I questioned him. Of course I questioned him. Junho, are you okay? I feel like you're distant. He always had a ready answer. I'm just stressed about work. You're being paranoid. Why don't you trust me? And that last question always silenced me. Because I didn't want to be that controlling, insecure wife who's always questioning. I wanted to trust. I needed to trust. So I swallowed my suspicions and pretended everything was fine. But my body didn't lie. I started having insomnia. I would lie awake in the early hours, staring at the ceiling, with my heart tight, feeling that something was terribly wrong but unable to name it. I lost weight. I stopped dressing up like before. After all, what for? He barely looked at me. I could be in old pajamas or a new dress. It made no difference. I was invisible. But that night, everything would change. On my birthday, I woke up with that silly expectation in my chest. You know when you want to believe so badly that things will get better, that you cling to any excuse? It was my special day. Surely he would do something different. Maybe this would be the day we reconnected, when he would remember why he fell in love with me. He was in the kitchen, his back to me, stirring coffee. I approached from behind, hugged his waist, pressed my face against his back. "Good morning," I whispered, putting all the hope I still had inside me into those 2 words. He shifted, uncomfortable with the embrace, and responded without turning around. "Good morning." That's it. No happy birthday, no kiss, no warmth, just that cold, mechanical good morning, as if I were just any work colleague. I slowly let go of him and took a step back. I felt that familiar lump in my throat, that urge to cry that I was already tired of repressing, but I wasn't going to cry. Not first thing in the morning. Do you remember what day it is today?" I asked in a small voice, hating how much it sounded like pleading. He finally turned around, with a confused expression. "Thursday?" My heart sank. "It's my birthday, Junho." His expression changed, not to guilt, as I expected, but to irritation. "Oh, that's right. Sorry. I have a lot on my mind." He grabbed his coffee cup and started walking toward the bedroom to get ready for work. I stood there, stopped in the middle of the kitchen, feeling the ground disappear beneath my feet. Not even a hug. Not even a "we'll celebrate later." Just that empty "sorry" that meant nothing. He left early for work. The door slammed, and the silence that remained was deafening. I looked around the apartment, that space I had transformed into a home, with photos of us on the walls, with pillows I had embroidered by hand, with plants I cared for lovingly. All of it seemed empty now, hollow, like me. I should have known in that moment. But the heart is stubborn. I spent the entire day trying to distract myself. I cleaned the house, even though it was spotless. I watched TV shows without paying attention. I looked at my phone 1,000 times, hoping he would send a message. Any message. Remembering my day. Nothing. The only messages were from my friends, Jiwon, Sumin, Hyejin, wishing me well, asking what I was going to do to celebrate. I responded with happy emojis, lying that everything was great, that we would have a romantic dinner that night. At 3 p.m, the phone finally vibrated with a message from him. My heart raced. I opened it quickly, hopeful. "Going to work late today. Don't wait up for dinner." I read those words 3, 4 times, as if repeating the reading would change their meaning. On my birthday. He was going to work late on my birthday. I typed and erased 1,000 responses. "But it's my birthday." Deleted. "Can't you leave early today?" Deleted. "I need you here." Deleted. In the end, I only responded, "Okay." And I hated how much that response sounded like surrender. I sat on the couch, looking at the view of the Han River through the window. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink, and I remembered when we had moved there. Junho had said he chose that apartment because of the view, because he knew I loved watching the sunset. "I want you to be happy here," he had said, hugging me from behind as we looked at the city. Where had that man gone? The one who cared about my happiness? Or had he never really existed? Had I fallen in love with an illusion? And then, at 7 p.m, the phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. I hesitated before answering, thinking it might be advertising, but something made me slide my finger across the screen. "Hello?" On the other end, a female voice, young, professional, full of life. "Good evening, Yunseo Si. This is Luna Nova Restaurant in Gangnam. We're confirming your reservation for tonight at 8 o'clock. Everything okay?" I was confused. My mind took a few seconds to process. Reservation? I didn't make any reservation. I heard the sound of papers being shuffled on the other end. "Oh, sorry. The reservation is under Park Junho's name. He said it was a surprise for you." My heart started beating faster. Junho. He had planned something. He hadn't completely forgotten. Maybe that message about working late was just to throw me off. Maybe he still cared. Yes, everything's fine. Thank you for calling," I responded, feeling a smile form on my lips for the first time that day. I hung up and stood there for a moment, processing. He had made a reservation, on a Thursday night, on my birthday. That meant something. It had to mean something. Maybe this would be the fresh start I had been hoping for. Maybe we could go back to being like before. I ran to the bedroom with an energy I hadn't felt in months. I opened the closet and looked for the navy blue dress, the one he always said looked beautiful on me, that brought out my eyes. I ran my hand over the soft fabric, remembering the last time I had worn it, on our wedding anniversary 2 years ago. I put on the dress, fixed my hair, carefully applied makeup. Foundation, blush, eyeshadow, mascara. I looked in the mirror and for a moment, I recognized myself. There was the Yoon Seo who existed before getting lost in that marriage. The Yoon Seo who shined. I sprayed the perfume he had given me on our first wedding anniversary. Notes of jasmine and vanilla, delicate and romantic. I grabbed my small party purse, put in my lipstick, phone, wallet, and then I saw the envelope. It was there, inside the purse, stored for 2 weeks. The annulment papers. I had gone to the lawyer in a moment of desperation, after a particularly painful night, when Junho had come home late, drunk, without explanation, and had gone straight to sleep without looking at me. The next day, I had called the lawyer and scheduled a consultation. I had signed all the papers, but hadn't had the courage to deliver them. I still had hope. I looked at the envelope for a long moment. Part of me wanted to take it out of the purse, leave it at home. After all, tonight would be different. Tonight would be the fresh start. But another part of me, a small but insistent voice deep down, whispered, "Take it, just in case." And I listened to that voice. I left the envelope in the purse, closed the zipper, and took a taxi to Gangnam. I still didn't know what I was about to discover. The journey to the restaurant was a mixture of anxiety and anticipation. I rehearsed in my head what I would say when I saw him. Maybe thank him for the surprise. Maybe say I missed him, missed what we had been. Maybe cry and confess how alone I had felt. The taxi crossed the illuminated streets of Seoul, passing 24-hour convenience stores, groups of young people laughing on the sidewalks, couples holding hands, and I looked at all of that with a sweet melancholy, thinking that maybe, just maybe, Junho and I would be like that again, a real couple. The taxi stopped in front of Luna Nova. It was an elegant restaurant, with a glass facade and soft lights that created a welcoming atmosphere. I could see movement inside, people, tables, waiters circulating. I paid the taxi, took a deep breath, straightened my dress, and walked to the door. My hands trembled slightly as I pushed the glass door. And then, surprise, the entire room exploded. Screams, applause, colorful lights flashing, loud music playing in the background. I took a step back, completely shocked, with my heart beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. There were balloons everywhere, gold and silver, tied in elaborate arrangements. Decorative banners crossed the ceiling. A huge table in the center of the room was covered with food, drinks, a 3-tier cake, and people. So many people, but I didn't know anyone. My eyes frantically scanned the room, looking for familiar faces. My friends? They weren't there. My family? No one. Colleagues from my old job? None. They were all strangers. People I had never seen in my life, smiling, looking at me, waiting for some reaction. And in the center of it all, with a champagne glass in his hand and a radiant smile on his face, was him, Junho, my husband. But he wasn't looking at me. He was looking at her. Next to him, so close their arms were touching, was a woman. She was young, maybe about 25 years old, with long, straight hair falling like a black curtain down her back. She wore a tight red dress, elegant, that hugged her slender body perfectly. She had a confident posture, chin slightly raised, a smile on her crimson-painted lips, and the way she looked at him, it was intimate, possessive, as if he belonged to her. My breath caught in my throat. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. Everything around me became blurred, distant, as if I were watching the scene through thick glass. Junho finally saw me. Our eyes met for a second, just 1 second, and I saw surprise on his face, but not the good surprise, of someone who's happy to see someone. It was the surprise of someone who got caught doing something wrong. He quickly looked away and cleared his throat, calling everyone's attention. The noise in the room decreased. People stopped talking and turned to him, expectant. He raised the champagne glass high, and the light from the chandelier reflected in the golden liquid, creating small rainbows that danced on the walls. He smiled. That smile I knew so well, that had once made me fall in love, that had once made me believe in happy endings. "I would like to make a toast," he began, with a firm and clear voice. The people around raised their glasses too, smiling, participating in that moment I didn't understand. Life surprises us in unexpected ways. Sometimes when we least expect it, we find someone, that changes everything. He looked at the woman next to him, and his eyes shone in a way they never shone for me. To my true love, the world stopped, simply stopped. And that's when I realized he had never loved me. People started clapping, smiling, raising their glasses in celebration. Some shouted words of encouragement, others whistled. The woman in red moved closer to Junho and kissed his cheek affectionately, leaving a lipstick mark on his cheek. He laughed, a genuine, happy, free laugh, a laugh I hadn't heard in years. And I understood, in that moment of painful and crystalline clarity, that he had never laughed like that with me, had never looked at me that way, had never truly loved me. I was the woman he married out of convenience, because it was expected of him, because it was the right time, the right age. I was safe, predictable, the sensible choice. But she was what he really wanted. The passion, the desire, true love, and he had chosen my birthday, my damn birthday, to celebrate his love for another woman. Suddenly, someone touched my arm. I turned and saw an older woman, maybe about 60 years old, with gray hair pulled into a bun and an uncomfortable expression on her face. "You're the wife, right?" she asked in a low voice, as if afraid others would hear. I couldn't respond. My voice had disappeared. I just nodded slightly. She shook her head with pity. "What a terrible situation, my God. I'm the mother of one of his work friends. My son brought me here saying it was a celebration party, but he didn't know that he was still married. This is very wrong." Her words echoed in my head. "Didn't know that he was still married. So the people here knew. They knew about the other woman. They knew he was living this lie, and no one had told me. No one had warned me. I was the only one who had been kept in the dark, believing in a farce while everyone around knew the truth. I felt something change inside me in that moment. It wasn't anger. It wasn't sadness. It was something deeper, more powerful. It was absolute clarity. It was the sudden and irreversible understanding that I had wasted years of my life trying to save something that had never existed. It was the certainty that I deserved more, much more. And it was the decision, firm as rock, that I was going to choose myself, finally going to choose myself. I opened my purse with hands that no longer trembled. I looked for the envelope. My fingers touched the thick paper, and I took it out slowly, almost in slow motion. It was a simple envelope, white, but what was inside had the power to change everything. The annulment papers, signed by me, ready to be delivered. And suddenly, that small voice that had told me to bring the envelope made sense. It was as if a part of me already knew, as if my subconscious had prepared for this moment. I started walking through the room. Each step was firm, decided. People started noticing my presence, and one by one they fell silent. The murmur decreased. Conversations ceased. Even the music seemed lower. It was as if the entire universe was holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen. Junho finally really saw me. The champagne glass almost fell from his hand. The color drained from his face like water down a drain. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Yunseo, what are you doing here?" His voice came out trembling, broken, and I realized he hadn't invited me. The reservation wasn't for me. It was for someone else, and someone from the restaurant staff had made a mistake, calling me thinking I should be there. The woman in red looked me up and down, evaluating. There was no shame in her look, no guilt, just curiosity, as if I were an intruder in a story that didn't belong to me. And maybe I was. Maybe I had never belonged to that story. I stopped in front of him. Our eyes met, and for the first time in years, I didn't look away, didn't lower my head, didn't pretend everything was fine. I extended the envelope toward him with a steady hand, secure, without a single tremor. And then I spoke, with a voice I didn't know I had, calm, serene, strong. "Happy birthday to me. Here's the annulment." The silence was absolute. No one moved. No one breathed. It was as if time had frozen. Junho looked at the envelope as if it were a bomb about to explode. His hands trembled when he took it. "Yunseo, wait. This isn't... I can explain." "No," I interrupted him. "You can't. And you know why? Because there's no explanation that justifies what you did. There's no excuse that erases the pain. There are no words that fix this." I looked around, at the decorated room, at the embarrassed people, at the cake he had never planned to share with me. "You chose my birthday to celebrate the love you feel for another person. And you know what that taught me? That I deserved more. I always deserved more. But I was so busy trying to make you happy that I forgot to make myself happy. He opened his mouth to speak, but I raised my hand. Thank you, Junho. Really, thank you for showing me that I was strong enough to survive without you. Thank you for freeing me from this prison I built myself. Thank you for giving me the greatest gift you could give me, the chance to start over without you. I turned my back, and in that simple, liberating movement, I left behind years of pain, of frustrated attempts, of unrequited love. I started walking toward the door. I heard his voice behind me, calling my name, begging me to wait. But I didn't stop, didn't look back. I pushed the glass door and went out into the cold Seoul street. And in that moment, I was reborn. It rained that night, a fine, cold rain that fell like tears from the sky. I walked aimlessly through the streets of Gangnam, letting the rain wet me, wash me, purify me. The neon lights reflected in the puddles on the sidewalks, creating a spectacle of colors that blurred and mixed. Convenience stores glowed like lighthouses in the darkness. Couples passed by running, laughing, protecting themselves under shared umbrellas. And there I was, alone, wet, but strangely at peace. My high-heeled shoes hit the sidewalk in a constant rhythm. Click, 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 like a metronome marking the time of a new life. I should have been destroyed, should have been crying, screaming, lamenting. But I wasn't. I felt something different, something I hadn't felt for so long I had almost forgotten the name: freedom. I stopped on a bridge over the Han River. I leaned on the cold railing and looked at the dark water running below. The reflection of the city lights danced on the surface like fallen stars, and I thought, that water keeps moving forward no matter what happens. It doesn't stop, doesn't go back. It just flows, constant, resilient, toward the ocean, and I could do the same. Could move forward, could flow, could allow myself to live again. If you've ever discovered a truth that destroyed you in a single second, tell me in the comments. Sometimes sharing the pain is the first step to surviving it. I took the subway back to Mapogu. The car was almost empty at that hour, just a few workers returning home late, a student sleeping with her head resting on the window, a man in a suit reading something on his phone. I sat in a corner and looked at my reflection in the dark subway window. I was wet. My makeup had smudged, forming dark spots under my eyes. My hair stuck to my face. The navy blue dress, which I had chosen so carefully, was soaked and wrinkled. But you know what I saw in that reflection? Courage. For the first time in years, I recognized myself. That wasn't the woman who begged for scraps of affection. That wasn't the wife who erased herself to make her husband happy. That was Yoon Seo, the real Yoon Seo, the one who had the strength to say, enough. The one who had enough dignity to stand up and walk away. The one who had enough self-love to understand that staying would be betraying herself. I got home late at night. The key trembled slightly in the lock, the only sign that maybe I wasn't as calm as I seemed. I pushed the door and entered the silent apartment. Everything was exactly as I had left it. The lights off, the kitchen clean, the couch pillows perfectly arranged. It was like entering a magazine house. Beautiful, impeccable, but lifeless. I took off my wet shoes and felt the cold floor on my feet. I walked to the bedroom, leaving a trail of raindrops down the hallway. I looked at the bed we shared, or rather, that I slept in alone while he was probably somewhere else, with her. I saw our wedding photo on the bedside table. I was smiling in that photo, a big, genuine smile, full of hope, and him beside me, also smiling, holding my hand. It seemed so real. It seemed so true. I picked up the picture frame and looked at it for a long moment. Then, with a decisive movement, I turned it face down and left it in the drawer. I didn't throw it away, didn't destroy it, just put it away. Because that was part of my story, yes, but it didn't define my future. I took a hot shower, letting the water burn my skin, taking away the perfume, the smudged makeup, the feeling of that night. I put on old, comfortable pajamas, the ones Junho always said were ugly, that I should wear something sexier. But I liked those pajamas. They were warm, soft, made me feel safe. I made ginger tea and went to the balcony. The Han River glittered in the distance, even with the rain. The boats continued passing, following their paths, indifferent to human dramas. And I stood there, with the hot cup in my hands, looking at the sleeping city, feeling something strange and new growing inside me. Hope. The following days were a blur of contradictory emotions. I woke up the next day with swollen eyes, But not because I had cried, simply because I had slept little, with my brain working in overdrive, processing everything that had happened. I looked at my phone. 17 missed calls from Junho, 23 messages. I didn't read any of them. I blocked the number without hesitation, but messages kept coming from other numbers. He must have been using phones from friends, from work, from anywhere. Yunseo, please listen to me. I made a terrible mistake. She means nothing. You're my wife. It's you I love. Give me a chance to explain. Don't do this to me. I read the messages with a strange detachment, as if I were reading someone else's story, and I noticed the pattern. He wasn't really apologizing. He was trying to manipulate me back. She means nothing, but she meant enough for him to celebrate publicly. It's you I love, but he had forgotten me on my own birthday. Don't do this to me, as if I were doing something to him, when in reality I was saving myself. I blocked all the numbers, all of them. My mother called on the second day. She lived in Busan, and we talked at least once a week. Yunseo-ya, how was your birthday? Did Junho do something special? Her voice was full of hope and affection. I took a deep breath. Mom, I need to tell you something. I told her everything. About the party, about the other woman, about the annulment. There was a long silence on the other end, and then I heard my mother crying. I always knew something was wrong, she said between sobs. You changed after you married him. You became quieter, more faded. But every time I asked, you said everything was fine. I wanted to believe you. I felt my heart tighten. I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't want to worry you. She sniffled. You don't have to apologize. He should. But I'm proud of you, my daughter, for having the strength to leave, for choosing yourself. That's courage. Her words gave me a strength I didn't know I needed, because sometimes we need to hear from someone who loves us that we did the right thing, that it wasn't weakness, that it was strength. And then came the call that would change everything again. A week after the party, I received a call from the lawyer. Yunseo-si, I have news about the annulment process. My heart raced. Did he sign? There was a pause. Not exactly. He's contesting. He says he wants a chance at reconciliation, that the marriage can be saved. I felt anger for the first time. Real anger. Hot. Burning in my chest. He's contesting? After everything he did? The lawyer sighed. Unfortunately, he has that right. The process will take longer. It could be months. I hung up feeling immense frustration. He wasn't going to let me go easily. Even after humiliating me, betraying me, publicly celebrating another love, he still wanted to keep me trapped. Not out of love, but out of control. Because letting me go meant losing the power he had over me. And men like him don't give up power easily. But if he wanted a fight, I was ready. Because I was no longer that woman who accepted everything in silence. I had found my voice, and I was going to use it. But the real transformation began when I decided to live again. 2 weeks later, I was tidying up the apartment, donating clothes I didn't wear anymore, rearranging the furniture, trying to make that space feel like mine again, when I found an old box at the back of the closet. I opened it and felt immediate nostalgia. They were things from when I worked with events, photos of parties I had coordinated, thank you notes from satisfied clients, a badge with my name and title, Yunseo, Events Coordinator, and at the bottom of the box, a notebook full of ideas, party themes, decorations, favorite suppliers. I sat on the floor and leafed through the notebook. Each page was a memory of who I had been, creative, passionate, good at what I did, and I had left all of that behind. Why? Because someone convinced me that my work wasn't important, that my place was at home, that my identity should be limited to being a wife. But I was more than that. I always had been. That's when I saw the sign in the window. I was walking through Insadong on a cold autumn afternoon, with no certain destination, just needing to get out of the house. The neighborhood was beautiful, full of craft shops, art galleries, charming cafes with the smell of freshly brewed coffee and homemade cakes. And then I saw, Wanted, Events Coordinator, Experience in Creative Planning, Send Resume to... I stopped, read it again. I felt something stir inside me, a spark, a possibility, a chance to go back to being who I was before I got lost. I took a photo of the sign. I went home. I updated my resume for the first time in years, and I sent it. 3 days later, I received the call. Yunseo-si, this is Park Min-jung from Eternal Dream Agency. We received your resume and would like to schedule an interview. My heart raced. Yes, of course. When? The next day. I hung up trembling with nervousness and excitement. I spent the entire night preparing. I separated an elegant but comfortable outfit. I reviewed my old portfolio. I practiced answers to possible questions. On the morning of the interview, I woke up with butterflies in my stomach. But they were good butterflies. From positive anxiety, from possibility. The agency was small but charming. Walls full of photos of events, weddings, conferences, birthday parties, product launches, everything organized with creativity and care. Park Min-jung was about 50 years old, gray hair pulled into a loose bun, kind eyes behind red-framed glasses. She greeted me with a warm smile. "Your portfolio is impressive," she said, leafing through the photos I had brought. "You clearly have talent. But tell me, why did you stop working?" I swallowed hard. "I got married, and I put my career aside." She looked at me over her glasses. "And why do you want to come back now?" I took a deep breath. "Because I forgot who I was. And I want to remember." She smiled. "When can you start?" And so, I went back to work. At first it was strange. It had been years out of the market. Technology had changed. Trends were different, but the essence was the same, creating special moments for people. And I still knew how to do that. My first event was a 50th birthday party. The client wanted something elegant but personal, that reflected her life journey. I spent days planning every detail, the colors that represented different phases, the decoration that told stories, the menu that included favorite dishes from each decade. On the day of the event, when I saw everything set up, when I heard the guests complimenting, when I saw the birthday woman crying with emotion, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Pride. Pride in myself, in what I was capable of, in what I could create with my own hands. Min-jung hugged me at the end. "You're special, Yunseo. You have a gift. Never let anyone take that away from you again." And I promised. To her, and to myself. Never again. And then, on a rainy Thursday, I met someone unexpected. I was preparing a corporate event at COEX, the largest convention center in Seoul. It was a technology conference with 300 participants, and I was supervising the setup. I checked every detail. The tables, the chairs, the sound system, the lighting, the coffee breaks. I was so focused that I almost bumped into a tall man who was photographing the space. "Oh, sorry," I said, stopping abruptly. He lowered his camera and smiled. "No, it was my fault. I was so focused on the composition that I didn't see you." He had a kind smile, wore thick-framed glasses, and there was something comforting about his presence. "Do you work here?" I asked. He nodded. "I'm a photographer, Kim Min-jun. I was hired to cover the event, and you must be Yunseo, right? Min-jung told me about you. She said you're the best coordinator she's ever had." I felt my face warm. "She exaggerates." He shook his head. "I doubt it. Look at this place. It's impeccable. You clearly know what you're doing." And there was a sincerity in the way he spoke that caught me off guard. It wasn't flirting. It wasn't flattery. It was genuine recognition of my work. We worked together throughout that day. Between one photo and another, we talked. He asked me about my trajectory, and I told him, without going into painful details, but sharing that I had returned to the market after some time off. He also shared. He had been divorced for 3 years. He had been through a complicated relationship where he lost himself trying to be who his ex-wife wanted, and when he found himself again, it was too late. She had moved on, and so had he. But it took time. It took therapy. It took a lot of internal work. But in the end, he said, adjusting the camera lens, it was the best thing that could have happened, because I learned that loving someone else only works when you first love yourself. Those words resonated inside me in a profound way. At the end of the event, when everything was dismantled and the last participants had left, Min-jun approached. "Can I invite you for coffee? Not as a date," he added quickly, "but as someone who understands the journey you're taking and who would like to hear more about it." I hesitated. Part of me was still afraid to open doors, but another part, the part that was learning to live again, said yes. The months were long. Silence was the only thing that filled the empty apartment at first, but gradually, that apartment began to come alive again. Not the life it had before, that false and superficial life, but a true life, my life. I bought new plants and learned to care for them. I cooked dishes I liked, not what he preferred. I listened to loud music, rock, jazz, classical music, styles he hated, but that made me feel alive. I painted a wall turquoise, just because I wanted to. I transformed his office into a studio where I started painting again, a hobby I had abandoned. I learned to cook just for myself, At first it was strange. Years making meals for two. Suddenly I was making for one. But I found beauty in it. In preparing a dish with care, not to please anyone, but because I deserved to eat well. In sitting at the table, even alone, and savoring each bite without hurry. I learned to sleep only on my side of the bed. But eventually, on a daring night, I slept in the middle, sprawled out, occupying all the space. And it was liberating. I learned to walk alone through the cold streets of Gangnam without fear of the future. I remember one particular night. It was winter. It was snowing lightly. And I decided to walk along Cheonggyecheon, the stream that runs through the heart of Seoul. The LED lights created an illuminated tunnel, and there were couples everywhere. Before, that would have saddened me, would have made me miss having someone. But that night, I felt only gratitude for being there, for being alive, for having the freedom to walk alone without having to answer to anyone. If you've fallen and managed to get up, comment, "I made it. I want to feel your strength from here." The annulment process dragged on as the lawyer had predicted. Junho did everything to delay it. He requested mediation meetings that led nowhere. He tried to negotiate, offering property divisions that were ridiculously favorable to him. He even sent flowers to my work once, a huge bouquet of red roses with a card. "I miss you. I always have." I gave the flowers to the receptionist and threw the card in the trash. But finally, 7 months after that fateful night, I received the call I had been waiting for. "Yoon Seo-si, I have good news." He signed. "The marriage is officially annulled." I hung up the phone and sat for a moment, processing. I was officially free. I was no longer Park Junho's wife. I was just Yoon Seo, and that was more than enough. That night, Min Jung insisted on going out to celebrate. We went to a bar in Hongdae, full of college students and artists, with live music and a vibrant atmosphere. We ordered soju and toasted. "To your freedom," she said, raising the small glass. "To my freedom," I repeated, and we drank together. And I felt, for the first time in a long time, that life could be good again. Min Jun was also there. He had become a close friend over those months. We worked together frequently, but also hung out outside of work. We talked about everything: art, politics, philosophy, life. He showed me photography and taught me to see beauty where I previously saw only ordinary. I shared paintings with him, and he encouraged me to exhibit at a cafe that a friend of his owned. That night at the bar, he called me outside. We went out to the quiet alley behind the establishment, where we could talk without shouting over the music. "I wanted to give you something," he said, taking an old camera from his backpack. It was a Polaroid, worn, but charming. My father gave me this camera when I started photography. He said it was to capture moments of transformation. I think now it belongs to you. I held the camera, feeling its weight in my hands, the meaning behind the gesture. "Min Jun, this is too much. I can't." He shook his head. "Yes, you can. You're transforming, Yoon Seo, every day, and I want you to have something to record this journey." We looked at each other for a long moment, and then he did something I didn't expect. He raised his own camera and took a picture of me. The flash illuminated the night. "First record of the new Yoon Seo," he said with a smile. And one day, as I crossed Mapo Bridge, the wind cut my face, but it no longer hurt. It was a spring morning, a full year since the night of the party. I had decided to walk across Mapo Bridge, the same bridge where I had walked alone that rainy night, with my heart broken and the world collapsing. But today was different. The sky was blue, the sun shone warm, and I was okay. The Han River ran strong beneath me, its waters shining like liquid silver. Boats passed slowly, leaving white trails on the surface. Cyclists pedaled along the bike path. Families walked with small children. A man played saxophone near the bridge entrance, and I stopped in the middle, closed my eyes, took a deep breath. The air smelled of spring, cherry blossoms, damp earth, new beginnings. And I realized the pain didn't kill me. It taught me. It taught me that I'm stronger than I ever imagined. It taught me that I can survive anything. It taught me that I don't need anyone's approval to feel whole. It taught me that the most important love is the love I have for myself. I opened my eyes and looked around. The vibrant city, people living their lives, and me, part of all of this, finally living my own life too. Not the life someone designed for me, but the life I was creating myself, brushstroke by brushstroke, choice by choice, day by day. The pain didn't kill me. It reinvented me. Today, my life is mine. I work in an area I love, surrounded by people who respect and value me. I have true friends who support me on difficult days and celebrate with me on good days. I have hobbies that feed my soul: painting, photography, walks around the city. I traveled alone for the first time. I went to Jeju Island and spent a week exploring the island, eating at local restaurants, hiking to hidden waterfalls, sleeping in charming inns, and it was magical. I didn't need anyone to validate that experience. It was mine, only mine. Minjun and I remain close. We didn't become a couple in the traditional sense. Our relationship exists in its own space: intimacy without possession, affection without expectations, companionship without demands. Sometimes we have dinner together. Sometimes we work on collaborative projects. Sometimes we go weeks without seeing each other, each living their own life, and it's perfect like this. Because I learned that healthy relationships give you wings, not chains, and he gives me wings. I reconciled with my family. My mother came to visit me in Seoul, and we spent a whole week together, visiting traditional markets, eating at old restaurants, talking about life. She said I looked 10 years younger. It's true happiness, she explained. It comes from within, and no one can take that away from you. I made peace with the past. I didn't forget. I didn't pretend it didn't happen. But I integrated it. I understood that marriage, as painful as it was, taught me valuable lessons. It taught me what I don't want. It taught me the signs I'll never ignore again. It taught me that erasing myself for someone isn't love. It's self-destruction. Today, I know that losing someone can be the first step to finding yourself again. A few weeks ago, I ran into Junho by chance. I was at a cafe in Itaewon, reviewing event proposals, when I saw him walk in with her, the woman in red from the party. My heart raced for a second, pure instinct, but then I took a deep breath and continued working. They didn't see me in the corner where I was sitting. I could observe them without being noticed. They were arguing. Her voice was harsh, accusatory. His, defensive. It was the same dynamic we had, the same toxic pattern, and I realized he hadn't changed. He had just found a new person to repeat the cycle with, and I felt something surprising. Compassion. Not for him, for her. Because she was entering the trap I had managed to escape. I got up, paid for my coffee, and passed by them on my way out. He saw me. Our eyes met, and there was nothing there anymore. No anger, no hurt, no love, no hate. Just nothing. Absolute indifference. He was a stranger, someone who was part of a chapter of my life that had already ended. I nodded slightly, politely, and left. On the street, I breathed the fresh soul air and smiled. Because that was true freedom, not needing anything more from him. No explanations, no apologies, no closure. Being at peace with what was, and focused on what's to come. And if today I could talk to the Yunseo from 2 years ago, the one who was at the party with her heart broken, I would say, breathe, just breathe. I know it feels like the world is ending. I know the pain is so great it seems impossible to survive it. I know you're wondering how you're going to keep living, but you will. You'll survive. And more than that, you'll be reborn. It will hurt. A lot. There will be nights when you'll cry yourself to sleep. There will be days when getting out of bed will seem impossible. There will be moments when you'll wonder if you made the right decision. But you did. You chose yourself. And that's the bravest thing anyone can do. You'll discover a strength you didn't know you had. You'll surprise yourself with your own resilience. You'll learn that you can live alone, not just surviving, but thriving. You'll fall in love with your own company. You'll build a life that's truly yours, not a life lived in someone else's shadow. And one day, maybe a year from now, maybe 2, you'll wake up and realize you didn't think about him when you opened your eyes, that the first thought of the day was about you, your plans, your dreams, your life, and you'll smile, because you'll understand that you're finally truly free. In Korea, I learned that even the cruelest winter holds a spring, and sometimes it's born inside us. Today, when I look in the mirror, I see someone I recognize. I see scars, emotional, invisible, but present. But I also see wisdom. I see strength. I see a woman who faced storms and came out the other side not just alive, but flourishing. I see someone who learned that self-love isn't selfishness. It's necessity. It's dignity. It's survival. I see someone who doesn't need external validation, who doesn't measure her worth by how much she's loved by others, but by how much she's capable of loving herself, who understands that being alone isn't loneliness, it's freedom, and that future relationships, if they come, will be complements, not necessities. Today I make my own toast. To my courage, to my journey, to the woman I was, who brought me here through the pain, to the woman I am today, stronger and more aware, and to the woman I'll still become, with infinite possibilities ahead. And you, who are reading this, who might be going through something similar, listen to what I'm going to tell you. You are not small. You are not worthless. You don't need to settle for scraps of affection. You deserve to be truly loved, with respect, with presence, with consistency. And if someone in your life can't give you that, it's not because you're not good enough. It's because that person isn't ready to recognize the treasure you are. And that's okay. Let go. As much as it hurts. As impossible as it seems. Let go. Because holding on to someone who doesn't choose you is imprisoning yourself emotionally. And you were born to fly, not to live in cages. Choose yourself, every day, in every small and big decision. Choose your happiness. Choose your peace. Choose your dignity. Because in the end, when it's all over, and you look back, the only person who really needs to be proud of you is yourself. The greatest proof of love is when you decide to love yourself enough not to accept less than you deserve. And you deserve everything. You always did. You always will. If this story touched you, leave a heart in the comments and share it with someone who needs to hear this. Because maybe there's someone out there going through the same thing I went through. Someone who's considering staying even though they feel they should go. Someone who's doubting their own perception. Someone who needs to hear that they're not crazy, that their feelings are valid, that they deserve more. Share this story. Not for me, but for all the people who are still trapped in relationships that diminish them. For all the women who still believe they need to erase themselves to be loved. For all the hearts that need to hear that it's possible to start over. That life doesn't end when a relationship ends. That sometimes it's just beginning. And remember, always, you are enough, exactly as you are. With your insecurities, your scars, your imperfections. You've always been enough. The right person will recognize that. And until that person appears, or even if they never appear, you can be enough for yourself. And that, my love, is true freedom. Namaste. May you find your spring, even in the middle of the coldest winter. May you find yourself again in the ruins of what you thought was love. May you flourish exactly where you're planted. And may you never, ever again, doubt your own worth. You are strong. You are brave. You are loved, first and foremost, by yourself. And that's what really matters.